LeetCode Problem 1, Two-Sum. This is the first and most answered problem on LeetCode. It is also a popular interview question for beginner roles. In this problem, we are given an array of integers, nums, and an integer target. And we want to return the indices of two numbers such that they add up to target. You may assume that each input would have exactly one solution, and you may not use the same element twice. So in this problem, we have an array and we have a target. In this array, there are going to be two values that add up to the target, and we want to return their indices in the array. So my first answer for this was a simple brute force solution where we would loop through the array and check basically every combination of values to see if they add up to the target. So on the initial loop, we'd set the first value to to 2, which is the 0 index number in the array, and then we check through the rest of the array to see if any of these numbers added up with 2 equal the target. So we check to see if 2 and 4 are equal to 10, which they are not. We check to see if 2 and 9 are equal to 10, which they are not. We would check to see if 2 and 5 and 2 and 6 are equal to 10, which neither of them are. So we would set our next indice to 4, and we would pretty much get rid of the 2. Then, as we did before, we'd loop through the rest of the array. Check to see if 4 and 9 are equal to 10, which they are not. We would check to see if 4 and 5 are equal to 10, which they are not. And then we would get to 6, and 4 and 6 are equal to 10. And we would return their indices in this array, which in this case are 1 and 4. Now, this does give us the correct answer, but it is a little bit taxing on time. We're looping through the array twice, and that gives us an n times n complexity, which in turn gives us big O of n squared. And we can actually get the answer to this problem by only looping through it once. Now let's work on that solution. So to get the answer with just one solution, or with just one loop, we want to instantiate an empty object, and we're going to call it hash. And what we're going to do with this hash is store each value as we pass through it in our loop. So we don't have to loop through it again. So as we pass through, we are going to check to see if the difference of the current number, which in this case is 2, we're going to see if the difference, which would be 8, exists in the hash map. So we're going to set a value difference to t minus nums I. In this case, that would be 8. And we're going to use a conditional to check to see if 8 is basically undefined or not in the hash. If it is undefined, then we are going to want to add it to the hash. So in this case, does hash 8 exist? It does not. Our hash is empty. So we're going to add 8 to the hash, or we're going to add nums I to the hash. And right now, nums I is 2. And we're going to give it the value of I, which is 0. So now 2 is done. So we're going to loop through again. We're going to get our difference of 4 minus 10, which is 6. We're going to see if hash has a value of 6, which it does not. So we're going to add to the hash nums I, which is 4, and pair it with its indice of 1. 4 is done. We're going to loop for 9 now. Difference is equal to 1. Does 1 exist in our hash? It does not. So we're going to add 9 with its indice of 2. Then we want to move on to 5. We're going to check if 5 exists in the hash. It does not, so we're going to add it with its indice of 3. Cross that out. And then lastly, we have 6. We're going to check to see if the difference 4 exists in the hash, which it does right here. So now our conditional is returning a true value. So what we want to do is return the indice in the hash for the difference, which is 1. And then we also want to include the indice for the value of I for 6, which is 4. So we get the same answer, 1 and 4. Now, this is a much quicker and more efficient solution because we're only passing through the array one time. This gives us a constant time complexity of just big O of n, which is significantly more efficient than our previous big O of n squared. So now I'm going to code this up. So the first thing we want to do is create the hash, which is an empty object. And in here, we're going to store all our previous values. Now we want to instantiate a for loop that is going to run for the duration of the length of nums. So we're going to set I to 0, and I cannot be greater than nums.length. We're going to increment I at each pass. So inside of this, we want to first set our difference value. So we're going to say let d equal target minus nums I. This will set the difference value, and we can check to see if it already exists in our hash. To do so, we're going to use a conditional. We're going to say if hash d does not equal undefined, then we want to return the indices as our answer. So we're going to return the indice for the difference value, which would be hash d, and also the indice for I, which is the current number we are looking at. Now, if this difference does not exist, we want to add the nums I value to the hash array. So we're going to say hash nums I is equal to I. So let's run this and see if we're getting any errors with the test cases. We're getting an accepted return for all the test cases. So let me submit and see if we're going to get the right answer. We do get the right answer. Solid runtime, solid memory usage. And that is it for twosome. If you have any questions or an answer of your own, leave it in the comments below. I am not a professional developer or a teacher. I am just a novice that is trying to continue improving my coding skills. So all comments or tips are welcomed. And thanks again for watching.